The day I was released from prison, it rained all day in Los Angeles. The iron door behind me made the kind of sound you have heard countless times in movies, heavy, slow, and full of indifference to the entire system. I thought I would look back, but I didn't. I stared at the parking lot, the rain running down my hair, the gray hoodie I'd worn for 3 years and washed white until it clung to me like a wet rag. I'm looking for Jack. Jack Davis. My fiancé. The man who held my hand when I was arrested and said, "Baby, I'll wait for you, not a day more." The man who made me believe it was all worth it. But his black pickup truck was not in the parking lot. There was only a black Cadillac Escalade, the windows were as black as the abyss, and the idling sound of the engine was as low as the breathing of some kind of big cat. The car door opened and 2 men in suits got out. Not the kind of salesman's suit you see in the mall, but the kind of tailor-made suit with shoulder lines as sharp as a blade. One of them walked up to me and held a black umbrella, covering all the rain above my head. "Emily Carter?" he asked. I nodded. Rain dripped from my chin. "Please get in the car." I glanced behind him subconsciously. Still looking for that pickup truck that doesn't exist. "Where's Jack?" The man didn't answer. He just opened the back door, turned slightly sideways, and made a please gesture. That gesture was so elegant that it gave me chills all over. I should have said no. I should have stood there and asked them to give me an explanation, or just turned around and walked back to the prison. To be honest, at that moment, the world behind that iron door was at least transparent. You knew the rules, you knew who wanted to stab you. You knew how to hide. But outside? I don't know anything outside. But the rain was too heavy. I'm too cold. It's been 3 years and I've forgotten what it feels like to have someone open the door for you. I got in the car. The sound of the car door closing was like a sigh. The leather seats in the car were heated, and there was cedar and some kind of expensive woody fragrance in the air. My soaked body sank into the seat and began to tremble uncontrollably. It wasn't cold, it was some kind of instinct, like the shiver an animal makes before being targeted by a predator. The car drove out of the prison parking lot and merged onto the highway in the rain. I didn't know where to go and I didn't even ask. 3 years of isolation from the outside world has robbed you of something, the confidence that I have the right to know the answer. In prison, the only things you have to know are when to eat, when to call roll, and when to shut up. After driving for about 20 minutes, the car turned into an area I had never been to. Not downtown, not in the neighborhood where I had rented a small apartment with Jack. It's a mountain. The houses on both sides of the road began to grow larger and more separated, each with iron gates and landscape lights, like fortresses of silence on a rainy night. Finally we stopped in front of a huge iron gate. The door opened, the car drove in, and drove up an extremely smooth driveway, lined with meticulously trimmed Italian cypress trees. In the rain and fog, a White House appeared in front of me. It's not a mansion, it's a manor. I've seen this kind of house on Instagram, in those short videos of tour of LA's top luxury homes. I never thought I would one day be driven into a place like this in an Escalade by 2 men in suits. The car stopped. The door is opened. It was still raining, but this time, someone held an umbrella and waited outside the car door. "This way please." I followed them into the house. The foyer is big enough to fit my entire cell. Marble floor, spiral staircase, crystal lamp above the head like a waterfall. My sneakers made an incongruous squeaking sound when I stepped on the marble. Every step reminded me, you don't belong here. They took me into a study room. The 4 walls are topped by bookshelves, but the books look more like decoration. There was a fire burning in the fireplace and the room was warm. There was a person sitting behind a huge mahogany desk. When he stood up, my first reaction was, this is not the buyer I imagined. I don't know what I was imagining. Maybe it's the greasy middle-aged man with a gold chain and a cigar who speaks with bad breath and condescending arrogance. But this man is different. He was about 35 years old, with dark hair, neatly trimmed, and a sharp jawline. He was wearing a dark blue cashmere sweater, with the cuffs rolled up to his forearm, revealing a very low-key but obviously expensive watch. He walked around the desk and walked towards me. His pace was slow and unhurried, as if he was completely in control of the rhythm of the world. He stopped 2 steps in front of me and looked down at me. "Emily," he said, his voice low and strangely gentle, "welcome home." My stomach tightened. "Where's Jack?" I asked. "This is the only thing I can say." He tilted his head slightly, and at that angle, the light from the fireplace hit his face, half bright and half shadowed. He smiled. Not a smirk, but how should I put it, something almost sympathetic. "Jack," he said slowly, as if savoring the name, "Jack isn't coming." My hands started to shake. It's not cold, it's something deeper that's collapsing. Who are you? I asked. My name is Victor Reyes. He held out his hand as if to shake my hand. I didn't move. He didn't care. He took his hand back, put it in his trouser pocket, turned around and walked towards the wine cabinet behind the desk. What's a drink? Whiskey? You probably need one. I don't drink. You don't drink even in prison? Then your willpower is stronger than I thought. He poured himself a cup, and the amber liquid formed a beautiful arc on the wall of the cup. He took a sip, then turned around, leaning against the wine cabinet, and his eyes fell on me. Do you know how much Jack owes? This question hit me like a bullet without warning. What? You don't know? He nodded, as if confirming his guess. He never told you. Of course not. How dare he? How could a girl with a face like yours and a background like yours tell you that he lost $600,000 in an underground casino? 600,000. The number exploded in my head. Jack and I were together for 4 years. The monthly rent for the apartment we shared was $1,800. He ran a car repair shop and I worked as an assistant manager at a chain drugstore. Even when we go on vacation, we have to use credit card installments. 600,000? How could he owe 600,000? You're lying. I said. Victor wasn't angry. He even smiled again, the kind of smile that made me feel like an innocent kid. I never lie, Emily. Lying is a poor man's game. I just need to control the truth. He walked to the desk, picked up a remote control and pressed it. The huge oil painting on the wall slowly rose, revealing a screen embedded in the wall. The screen lights up. It's a surveillance video. The picture quality is very clear and the color saturation is high. At first glance, it looks like it was taken with professional equipment. The picture shows a gaming table, baccarat. Jack sat at the table, his collar open, his cuffs rolled up, sweat on his forehead. The chips in front of him piled up like a hill, then disappeared, piled up again, and disappeared again. His expression switched repeatedly between ecstasy and fear, like a man dancing on the edge of a cliff. Then the screen fast forwards. The chips are getting smaller and smaller, and his expression is getting more and more distorted. In the end, there were no chips left in front of him. He raised his head and said something to the person outside the camera. I can't hear voices, but I can read lips. What he said was, give me another chance. Victor turned off the screen. That was 18 months ago, he said, a year and a half after you went to jail. Jack lost $470,000 at my casino. Including the previous ones, the total is $620,000. What did he get in return? His crappy car repair shop? Or your apartment that the bank had taken away? My knees are weak. I held on to the back of a chair next to me. So? I said. The sound was steadier than I expected. What does this have to do with me? Victor put down his glass and took a step closer to me. This time he was only an arm's length away from me. I could smell his clean, cold cedar scent, a ridiculous contrast to the prison's odor of disinfectant, sweat, and cheap laundry detergent. He came to me when you were in prison, Victor said, his voice lowered, as if he was telling a secret. He said he could give me something. Something worth more than $620,000. I don't speak. I dare not speak. He gave me you. When these 4 words fell, the study was so quiet that only the sound of crackling wood in the fireplace was left. That car accident 3 years ago, Victor said. Do you really think it was an accident? There was a buzz in my head. 3 years ago. October 17th. A rainy night, like tonight. I drove Jack's car to the supermarket to buy groceries. At an intersection, my car rear-ended a car in front of me. The car spun twice and hit a guardrail. Of the 2 people in the car, one died on the spot and the other was seriously injured. The accident report stated that my speed at the time of impact was over 65 miles per hour. The speed limit on that section of road is 35. The breathalyzer test was 0. But my cell phone records show I sent a text message 12 seconds before the incident. I was accused of being a vehicular manslaughter. Vehicular manslaughter. Jack cried like a child in the courtroom. He told the judge, she is my fiancé, she is a good person, she just made a mistake. He hired a lawyer and spent all our savings. The best outcome, lawyers say, is 3 to 5 years. Jack held my hand and said, I'll wait for you. I plead guilty. 3 years. Now this person tells me that it was not an accident? What do you mean? My voice was trembling. It's not fear, it's something more primitive awakening. Anger. Victor returned behind the desk, sat down, and crossed his hands on the table, as calmly as a CEO presiding over a meeting. The 2 people in the car that you hit were the financial director of my competitor and his lawyer. They were carrying a key document that could completely destroy my competitor in federal court. If that document gets into the hands of prosecutors, my competitor will spend at least 10 years in prison. He paused. You hit them. The documents were burned in the accident. My rival kept his empire. And it took me 2 years to find out what happened in that so-called accident. My mind was racing, but every gear was stuck. You mean Jake arranged that car accident? Victor didn't answer. He just looked at me, and there was patience in that look, something almost pity, and a kind of admiration that sent shivers down my spine. Jack owes too much money, Victor said, and he needs a big one. Someone approached him and made him an offer. Have him cause a car accident and target the people in that car. But Jack was smart, or he thought he was. He didn't do it himself. He asked you to drive that car. He tells you that the car needs to be broken in and asks you to drive it more. He even deliberately sent you a text message before the incident to distract you while driving. That text message. My voice was barely a whisper. Don't forget to buy milk. Victor finished for me. My tears fell. Not because of sadness, but because of something dirtier than sadness. Humiliation. That text message. I always thought it was an everyday, trivial, part of love. I even told the judge in court, I got a text from my fiancé and I looked down, just for a second. I used this second to explain everything and bear everything. And he didn't send that text message to ask me to buy milk. To distract me. It was to make me crash the car. So that I could go to jail for him. No. I shook my head. I can't accept this. Not because I'm naive, but because the truth is so ugly. It didn't ruin 3 years of my life, it ruined the 4 years I spent with him. Every hug, every time he says I love you, every morning we wake up together. If all of this is foreshadowing, all for me to kill 2 people for him on a rainy night, then who am I? What do I think of him? Victor stood up. He walked around the desk, walked up to me, and handed me a tissue. I didn't answer. You haven't heard the best part yet, he said. I looked up at him. His eyes were a dark brown, almost black in the light of the fireplace. Those eyes are calm as a person who already knows all the answers and is waiting to see how you solve this problem. The one who found Jack and gave him the price, Victor said, was me. Time stopped. Not a metaphor. It literally stopped. The fire in the fireplace stopped beating, the sound of rain outside the window disappeared, and so did my own heartbeat. The world collapsed into every movement of his lips. I planned the car accident, Victor said, his tone as calm as reading a shopping list. I needed those 2 people to disappear, along with the documents in their hands. But I couldn't do it myself, so I found Jack. A gambler, a coward, a man who would do anything for money. I gave him $500,000. Tell him to cause a car accident and target the people in that car. I don't care what you do, as long as they don't get to their destination. He paused and tilted his head. But I didn't expect him to use you. This sentence was like a knife, but it didn't come from the front. It's from behind. It's the person you trust most who holds the handle of the knife, and the person who tells you I didn't expect him to use you is the person who hands him the knife. You. I opened my mouth, but my voice was stuck in my throat. I want to say a lot. I want to say you bastard. I want to say you are all beasts. I want to say I want to call the police. But each of these words was as pale as a prison wall. Call the police? What to call the police? I am the one who is convicted. I have completed my 3-year sentence. I signed a plea agreement. Legally, the matter is over. Victor seemed to read my thoughts. What do you think you spent 3 years in jail for? He said, his voice becoming soft as a tightening rope. For justice? Don't be naive. You stayed for 3 years because I needed you to stay for 3 years. I need everything to be settled, all the evidence to disappear, and everyone to forget about the car accident. When you come out, there will be nothing left. There were no witnesses, no physical evidence, nothing to tie me to that car accident. The only thing left, he looked at me. That's you. My legs finally couldn't hold on any longer. I slumped into the chair behind me. The chair was soft and leather, which contrasted absurdly with the soaked hoodie I was wearing. I sat on a chair that cost more than my 3-year rent, and listened to a man tell me that my life was a chess game controlled by 2 people. Jack used you to pay off his debts, Victor said, and not just the $620,000 gambling debts. He used you to buy his own freedom. When he sold you to me, it wasn't even because of the money he owed me. He sold you to me because he was afraid of me. He was afraid of me tell you the truth. He was afraid that you would know that he planned the car accident, so he chose a cleaner way. Let me take over you. That way you would never know the truth, and you would think that he was just a scumbag who ran away because he owed money. Not someone who asks you to kill people for him. I finished for him. Victor nodded. Silence. The fire crackled in the fireplace. The rain outside the window seems to have become lighter. I sat in that chair and felt like a puzzle being taken apart, each piece not where it was supposed to be. Then I did something Victor Reyes didn't expect. I laughed. I laughed out loud. Not the kind of happy smile, the kind that is the only reaction you can make before you completely collapse and face some extremely ridiculous truth. I laughed so hard that my whole body shook, and tears mixed with rain dripped from my chin. Victor looked at me and smiled, his expression changing slightly for the first time. Not surprised, but curious. He was re-evaluating me. You know, I finished laughing and wiped my face with the back of my hand. In prison, what I fear most is not the inmates. What I fear most is boredom. The boredom of waking up every day and knowing what will happen that day. I even began to miss the outside world, even if the outside world sent me to prison. I raised my head and looked at Victor. But now I know. The outside world really didn't let me down. You guys are more creative than anyone in prison. Victor was silent for a few seconds. Then he laughed too. His smile was different from mine, the calm, in-control kind, the kind of appreciation a hunter gets when his prey suddenly shows more intelligence than expected. I like you, Emily, he said. You're much more interesting than Jack describes. How would Jack describe me? He said you were a good girl. Obedient. Kind. Easy to control. I nodded. Yes, this is me. Good girl Emily. Obedient Emily. Emily takes the blame for her fiancé. Emily confessed quietly in court without crying or fussing. The Emily who stayed out of trouble, stayed out of gangs, and lived every day as the same day in prison. That Emily is dead. Just now. The moment Victor said, he sold you to me. What do you want? I asked. The voice was so calm that even I felt unfamiliar. Victor walked back to the liquor cabinet and poured himself another half glass of whiskey. He didn't pour it for me, which was a relief. If he poured me a glass of wine at this time, I would feel like he was treating me as a guest. But he didn't. He was treating me like how did he put it? A thing that is sold. I need you to stay here, Victor said, to live in this house. Eat my food, wear my clothes, use my things. You need to be there when I need you to be there. You need to do what I need you to do. What to do? You don't need to know now. He took a sip of whiskey, the amber liquid on the sides of the glass reflecting the light of the fireplace. You just need to know one thing, you are mine now. Jack signed the agreement. You are his asset transferred to me by legal document. Assets. I repeated the word. It felt like a broken piece of glass in my mouth. Yes. Assets. Victor put down the wine glass and looked at me. Make no mistake, Emily. I'm not treating you as a guest. You are here because you have nowhere to go. You have no family, no friends, no job, no house. You just got out of prison and you don't even have money to take the bus. You don't even know what apps are used to hail taxis out there. He's right. Every sentence is correct. And I, he continued, are the only one who can give you these things? Not only that, I'm the only one who knows the whole truth. You can hate me, you can try to fight me, but do you know what the consequences are? He walked up to me, bent down, and placed his hands on the arms of my chair, trapping me in the middle. His face was so close to mine that I could see the glow of the fireplace in his pupils. The result is that you are back on the street, found within a week by someone who knows Jack, and then sold to a worse place. Because Jack not only owes me money, he also owes money to at least 5 people. And those people are not as civilized as I am. His lips were very close to my ears, and his voice was so low that he seemed to be speaking only to me. So your best choice is to stay here. Do what I ask you to do. Slowly, maybe you will find that being owned by me is not the worst outcome. He straightened up and took a step back, regaining his calm posture. He adjusted the cuffs of his cashmere sweater and glanced at his watch. There is a guest room upstairs. There are new bath towels and toiletries in the bathroom. Breakfast will be prepared in the kitchen at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I suggest you eat it. Your physical examination report shows that you lost too much weight in prison. I don't want to see a malnourished asset. He turned and walked towards the study door. When he reached the door, he stopped and did not look back. Oh, right. Don't try to run. This house has better security than a prison. And, he finally looked back at me. Where can you go if you run away? The door is closed. I sat in that chair, the fire in the fireplace casting dancing light and shadow on my face. The rain outside the window stopped. There were no stars in the Los Angeles night sky, just the distant city lights that turned the clouds a dirty orange. I looked down at my hands. These hands held the steering wheel 3 years ago. These hands folded sheets in prison, wiped floors, and flipped through borrowed paperbacks in the library. These hands took over the plea agreement in the court, pressed on the glass of the visiting room, and waited when there was no one on the other side. The hands are empty now. Nothing. Not even a fist to hold. I sat in that chair all night. At 8 o'clock the next morning, there was indeed breakfast in the kitchen. It's not what you think of as a rich people's breakfast, no avocado toast, no freshly squeezed juice, no beautifully presented fruit bowls. It's just a very ordinary breakfast. 2 eggs, fried until they are runny, 2 slices of whole wheat toast, a small plate of butter, and a cup of black coffee. Next to the plate is a handwritten note. The handwriting is as neat as a type. Don't overcook the eggs. It says in your file. My profile. He has my file. I sat down and ate the eggs. Not because I want to eat, but because I need energy. The first thing you learn in prison is, no matter what happens, eat the food. Because you never know where your next meal will be. I was eating and thinking. Thinking about every word Victor said last night. Thinking about the details of every expression on his face. Thinking about why he installed the screen hidden behind the oil painting in the study. And thinking about why he told me all this. He is not afraid of me. This is the scariest part. Victor Reyes is not afraid of me. He is not afraid of me calling the police, not afraid of me running away, not afraid of me resisting. Because in his eyes, I don't have these options at all. I was labeled by the system as an ex-con, a felon, a label that stands out more than any other tattoo in America. No landlord was willing to rent to me, no serious employer was willing to hire me, and even volunteer jobs required background checks. I didn't even have a bank account because Jack took all the money out of my account when I was in jail. I was truly, completely, nowhere to go. So yes, Victor is not afraid of me. He was even enjoying the process, telling me his plan and watching my reaction, like a child roasting ants with a magnifying glass. He wasn't torturing me, he was testing me. Test my resilience, test my bottom line, test whether I am worth the 620,000 yuan. I finished the last bite of toast and took the plate to the kitchen sink to wash it. The kitchen is very large, and the island countertop is a solid piece of marble with nothing on it. It is as clean as an operating table. I turned the plate upside down on the drain rack, and when I turned around, I saw a sticky note on the refrigerator. The cloakroom is at the end of the corridor on the first floor. Choose whichever you like. VR. I hesitated for a moment, then walked to the end of the corridor. The cloakroom was 4 times bigger than my entire cell in prison. The 4 walls were covered with clothes, arranged by color, like a display area in a boutique. In the middle is a shoe cabinet. From sneakers to high heels, every pair is in my size. There is a jewelry cabinet in the corner. When you open it, there are several sets of simple jewelry, not the exaggerated diamonds, but silver jewelry and thin chains that can be worn daily. I stood in the middle of the cloakroom, feeling like a doll in a carefully decorated dollhouse. Every piece of clothing, every pair of shoes, every necklace is chosen according to someone's aesthetics. Not my aesthetic. It's Victor's. Or it belonged to one of Victor's men. I chose a black turtleneck sweater, a pair of dark blue jeans, and a pair of white sneakers. It's simple, low-key, and won't make me look too out of place in this house. After changing my clothes, I stood in front of the mirror for a while. The man in the mirror didn't look like someone who had been in jail for 3 years. Victor had obviously hired someone to take care of these clothes, and the cuts and fabrics helped me hide the traces of prison life, the too thin figure, the cheeks that weren't full enough, the lingering alertness in the eyes. But the eyes cannot deceive. 3 years ago, I had that innocent, soft, believing world that was kind in my eyes. Not anymore. There was only one thing in those eyes now, calmness. I learned it in prison. When everything around you is trying to destroy you, the only thing you can do is become colder than them all. I stayed in that house for 3 days. I haven't seen Victor in these 3 days. The house is big, so big that you can go a whole day without touching another person. There are chefs to cook, janitors to clean, and gardeners to prune those Italian cypress trees outside. Everyone was in uniform, and everyone ignored me as if I was just a new piece of furniture in the house. On the 4th day, Victor showed up. He wore a white shirt, no tie, and the cuffs were still rolled up to his forearms. He stood in the kitchen, made himself a cup of coffee, leaned on the counter, and watched me walk in. "Do the clothes still fit?" he asked. "Suitable. Did you eat well? Okay. Did you sleep well?" I looked at him. "What do you want to say?" He smiled. That kind of laughter reminds me of a word cat and mouse game. But he got one thing wrong. He is not a cat and I am not a mouse. "There's a party tonight," he said, "in Beverly Hills. I need you to come with me." "What to do?" "Just stand next to me. Smile. Not talking is okay. But you need to be present." "Why?" He took a sip of coffee. Because there were some of my business associates at that party. They knew I had a new guy recently. If you didn't show up, they would start guessing. And guessing is the most dangerous thing. New people, I repeated. Is this how you position me? For now, yes. He put the coffee cup down and looked at me. You need an identity, Emily. In this world, people without identity do not exist. I give you an identity, and you help me maintain an image. This is the deal. I didn't agree to any deal. You ate my eggs, wore my clothes, and slept in my bed, Victor said, his tone as flat as stating the weather forecast. You're already in this deal. He's right. Once again I was speechless. That night I put on the only evening gown hanging in the dressing room, black, ankle-length, backless, with fabric that draped like liquid. I don't know who picked this dress, but I have to say, it makes me look like a different person. Someone who doesn't belong in prison. A man who has never taken the blame for anyone. Victor is waiting for me in the foyer. He changed into a dark gray suit and a black tie. He looked like he stepped out of GQ magazine. He glanced at me. His eyes stayed on me for about 2 seconds, then turned and walked towards the door. Let's go. I followed him into the Escalade. This time, it was just the two of us in the back seat. The driver raises the partition and the back seat becomes a mobile private space. Victor sat next to me, scrolling through the emails on his phone, saying nothing. I looked out the window at Los Angeles. The city lights flowed on the car windows like golden rivers. I remembered 3 years ago, when Jack and I were driving on the 405, he always had one hand on the steering wheel and one hand on my knee. He said, baby, one day we're going to live in those houses on the hill. Where does he live now? This question suddenly occurred to me. Where did he go with the money after he sold me? Did he think of me late one night? Remember me carrying everything for him in court? Maybe not. Maybe he's lying on a beach somewhere, drinking the wine he bought with my freedom. You're thinking about Jack. Victor's voice came from the side. It's not a question, it's a statement. I didn't answer. Don't think about it, he said. He's not worth a single brain cell of yours. Of course you would say that. You bought me from him. Of course you don't want me to miss him. Victor put down his phone and turned to look at me. It was dark in the car, with only the light from the dashboard hitting his face, making his features look like sculptures. Do you know what he did after he got that money? I don't speak. He didn't repay the debt. He didn't leave Los Angeles. He didn't even change cars. There was something unfamiliar to me in Victor's voice, disgust. He took the money and went to Las Vegas. All was lost within 3 days. I closed my eyes. Then he came back to Los Angeles. Live in a garage 3 streets away from your old apartment. He is still gambling. Still borrowing. Still lying. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know that the person you're dying for is not worth a minute of your sacrifice for him. Victor's voice returned to calmness. And at least I won't pretend that I am a good person. I'll tell you what I did. I don't ask you to forgive me. I don't even ask you to like me. I just need your cooperation. The car drove into a tree-lined avenue in Beverly Hills, and the palm trees on both sides cast long shadows under the streetlights. The house in the distance was brightly lit, and the sound of music and voices could be heard faintly. Tonight, Victor said, you only have to do one thing, stand next to me. Smile. If someone talks to you, just say, nice to meet you, and then don't say anything else. What if I don't want to laugh? Victor looked at me. In the dim light of the dashboard, I saw the corners of his mouth curl up slightly. Then don't laugh, but don't cry. In this world, tears are more dangerous than guns. They make people want to see how much more you can shed. The party was in a house 3 times the size of Victor's house. There were people everywhere, everyone wearing the kind of clothes you couldn't tell the price of but were definitely ridiculously expensive. The air smelled of perfume, cocktails, and money. As soon as Victor walked in, several people gathered around to shake his hand and pat his shoulders, saying things like, Vic, long time no see, and I heard your business has been doing well recently. Victor looked completely different on these occasions than he did at home. At home he was cold, controlled, every word calculated. But when surrounded by these people, he became relaxed, and would even laugh out loud, patting others on the back and saying, brother, you have to come and see my new place. And I was standing next to him. Like a decoration. No one asked me any questions. They just looked at me, their eyes stayed on my face for a few tenths of a second, and then continued talking to Victor. I recognized that look, not the look at people, but the look at objects. They are evaluating Victor's new owned thing to determine whether its quality, value, and whether it is different from the previous one. One thing became clear to me in that moment. In this room, in the eyes of all these people, I was not Emily Carter. I am not a person with a name, a history, and feelings. I'm Victor's new girl. An accessory. An updated bag. My hands are shaking. Not fear, but a completely obliterated anger. Halfway through the party, I excused myself from the crowd by going to the restroom. I walked along the corridor for a while and stopped on an empty balcony. The night wind blew over, carrying the unique smell of dryness and palm trees in Los Angeles. I held my hands on the railing, lowered my head, and took a deep breath. Then I heard a voice. Are you the girl who took the blame for Jack? I turned sharply. I don't know when there was an extra person on the balcony. A woman. He was about 40 years old, with short hair, wearing a sharply tailored white suit jacket, and holding a glass of almost empty red wine in his hand. She leaned against the doorframe and looked at me with a look that didn't have the indifference of others appraising objects, but how should I put it, an I know you thing in her eyes. Who are you? I asked. My name is Diana Cross, she said, stepping onto the balcony and taking a stand next to me, also leaning on the railing. I'm Victor's ex-partner. That's not quite the right word. Maybe I should say that I was the only one who was still alive after breaking up with him. I looked at her. She smiled, and there were many things in that smile: self-deprecation, alertness, and some kind of hidden exhaustion. You'd better stay away from Victor, she said. I know you have no choice now. But I need you to know one thing. She turned her head and looked directly at me. That car accident was not Jack's idea. Not Victor's either. Someone was the matchmaker between the two of them and provided Jack with the route, time, and even the license plate number of the car that the two people were going to take. This man had everything planned out and was just waiting for a scapegoat to appear. Who? Diana placed the wine glass on the railing, took out a folded note from the inner pocket of her suit, and thrust it into my hand. Before you were released from prison, someone was waiting for you outside the prison for 3 days. Not Victor's people. Be that person's person. But you didn't come out. Victor picked you up a day earlier than you expected. She straightened up and patted the non-existent wrinkles in her suit. That guy doesn't want you to get out of jail alive. You are a living proof, Emily. You were the only person alive in that car accident. As long as you are here, someone may find out the truth. So, she paused. No matter how much Victor protects you, don't trust him. Because he protects you, not because he cares about you. It's because you are alive and useful to him. But to that person, you are a threat as long as you are alive. She's gone. As sudden as she came. I stood on the balcony, holding the note in my hand. My palms were sweaty. I waited for a minute to make sure she was gone, then unfolded the note. Just a name and a date are written on it. Marcus Wayne. October 17th, 3 years ago. The day the car accident happened. I've heard this name before. In prison news. Marcus Wayne, the founder of Los Angeles' largest real estate developer, was under federal investigation for bribery and money laundering, but all charges were eventually dropped. What was the reason for the revocation? I can't remember clearly. The newspaper said it was the unexpected death of a key witness. A key witness dies unexpectedly. The same guy who was in the car I crashed that night. A puzzle began to fit together in my mind. But the puzzle was so big that when I stood on the balcony, I felt like a speck of dust. Marcus Wayne wants to get rid of 2 people, his financial director and his lawyer, because they have evidence against him. He found Victor, or Victor found him. Victor planned the car accident and found Jack to execute it. Jack put me in the driver's seat. Layer after layer. Everyone is taking themselves out of the matter and passing the blame on to the people below. Marcus pushed to Victor, Victor pushed to Jack, and Jack pushed to me. And I'm at the bottom. The layer closest to the ground. All the weight was on me. I balled up the note and stuffed it into the lining of my skirt. Then I took a deep breath, walked back into the hallway, made my way through the crowd, and found Victor. He was standing with several men talking. Seeing me approaching, he tilted his head slightly and glanced at my face, as if he was reading something. I walked over to him, stood up, and smiled. I learned this smile in prison. There is a saying in prison, smile is the most advanced weapon. Because it makes the other person think that you are okay, that you are not planning anything, that you are still the obedient, kind, and easy to control Emily. But Emily was dead that day. The man standing here now was a new man. Someone who doesn't have a name yet. After the party, when we were in the car going home, Victor suddenly said, "When you went to the balcony, did anyone talk to you?" My heart skipped a beat. But I didn't hesitate. "No," I said, "I just want to get some air." Victor looked at me for a few seconds. Then he turned his head and continued looking at his phone. "Yeah. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The bedroom is large, the bed is soft, and the quilt is the kind of Egyptian long staple cotton that you sink in and don't want to come out of again. But my body wasn't used to the softness. In prison, I slept on a 6-inch thick sponge mattress for 3 years, which was as hard as sleeping directly on the concrete floor. This softness keeps me awake. I sorted through the information in my head. Victor needs me alive, because I am his asset and a tool he uses to maintain a certain balance. Marcus Wayne doesn't want me alive, because I was the only one who could connect him to the car accident. Where is Jack? I have no idea. But one thing is for sure, he also knows the truth. He was the most direct connection between me and that car accident. And Diana Cross? Is she friend or foe? Why should she help me? I have no idea. But I remember one thing, in this game, there are no friends. Only people whose interests are temporarily aligned. From that night on, I changed. I stopped asking Victor why. I stopped mentioning Jack's name in front of him. I get up on time, eat on time, and show up on time for every occasion he needs me to be there. I learned to listen quietly when he spoke, to lower my head slightly when he looked at me, and to smile just right, no more, no less, at those parties. I became the Emily he wanted. At least, that's what it seems. But actually, I'm doing something. One thing you learned in prison, patience. Victor has a habit of spending 2 hours in his study every afternoon. The door was closed, the blinds were drawn, and no one could get in. During those 2 hours, he dealt with things he really didn't want anyone to see. I started to pay attention to the pattern of going in and out of his study. The cleaners come in every Wednesday and Saturday for 20 minutes each time. During these 20 minutes, the janitor would clean the study thoroughly, including his desk. That is, twice a week, his desk is unattended. But I can't risk it. Victor is not the type to leave important documents on his desk. His important things must be somewhere more hidden. So I started observing another habit of his. Every time he left home, he would bring a black briefcase with him. That briefcase never leaves my hand. Even when I go to the bathroom, I take it with me. But one day, he forgot. That afternoon, he answered a phone call. His voice was urgent. After he hung up the phone, he hurried out the door and placed his briefcase on the shoe cabinet at the door of the study. I looked at the briefcase from around the corner of the hallway. My heart was beating so fast that I could feel the blood rushing in my temples. I walked over. The lock on the briefcase is a combination lock, 3 digits. I tried Jack's birthday, not right. Tried my own birthday, not right. Tried Victor's birthday, I don't actually know his birthday. I stood there, my palms were sweaty and my mind was racing. Then I tried a number, 1017. October 17th, the day the car accident happened. With a click, the lock opened. My hands are shaking. I opened the briefcase and found several folders, a USB flash drive, and a black Moleskine notebook. I opened the notebook and inside were Victor's handwritten notes, not a formal record, just something jotted down. Names, numbers, dates. I saw a name, Marcus Wayne. There was a series of numbers written next to it that looked like a bank account number. There is also a line of small words, 3rd installment, November 30th, final payment. I turned to the next few pages and saw Jack's handwriting. No, it's what Victor wrote about Jack. The accumulated gambling debt is 620,000. Plan A has been used. Asset transfer completed. Subsequent risks, low. Low. His risk assessment for Jack was low. What is my risk assessment in his mind? I looked through the entire notebook and couldn't find my name. Not because I'm not important. It's because in his evaluation system, my risk level is probably lower than Jack's. What risks can a woman with no family, no friends, no money, and a criminal record take? I almost laughed out loud. Then I saw the last page. It has an address and a time written on it. The address is a warehouse district in the San Fernando Valley, and the time is next Friday at 11 o'clock. There was no note written next to it, but the address was circled 3 times in red. I took pictures of every page with my phone. Then I put the notebook back, locked the briefcase, and put it back in its place. The whole process takes no more than 4 minutes. I went back to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at the photos on my phone. My heartbeat slowly returned to normal, but my hands were still shaking. Not afraid. It's adrenaline. The kind I learned in prison, the ability to stay awake in the face of danger. Next Friday. San Fernando Valley. Warehouse. I want to go there. The next week I was even more submissive than before. Victor took me to 2 parties, and I played his asset perfectly, standing quietly next to him, smiling, not saying anything I shouldn't. He even started to let his guard down a bit with me, and once in the car he answered a call and didn't ask the driver to raise the partition. I heard several key words, Pier, customs clearance and Thursday. But I showed no reaction. I just looked out the window and pretended to count the streetlights. Thursday. Friday. The time is approaching day by day. On Friday afternoon, Victor went out. He said he had an entertainment event in the evening and might come back very late. Before he left, he glanced at me and said, "You have a good rest at home tonight. There will be an important occasion that requires you tomorrow." "Okay," I said. After he left, I waited until dark. Then I took a set of dark sportswear from the cloakroom and put on sneakers. I didn't go out through the main entrance. It was monitored and required a password. But I spent a week carefully studying the perimeter of the house on my afternoon walks. There is a dead end on the east side of the garden. There is a small section of wall between the two cypress trees, and the coverage of the surveillance camera leaves a blind spot here. Outside the fence is a downhill path that leads to the main street of the community. I climbed over that wall. My hand was cut by the gravel on the wall, but I didn't stop. I ran down the path to the main road and called an Uber on my phone. "Where to go?" the driver asked. I showed him the address of the warehouse. He frowned. "That place? Going at night?" "Yes." He shrugged and started the car. The car drove for 40 minutes, going further and further away. There were fewer and fewer lights on both sides, and finally only the street lights on the highway were left. We got off the highway and turned onto an industrial road with no street lights. There are warehouses and factories on both sides, and the rusty iron sheets glow dark red in the moonlight. "We're here," the driver said. "Are you sure you want to get off here?" I tipped him $20 and got out of the car. The cold wind blew into my gym clothes. I stood on the side of the road, looking at the warehouse district ahead. The address pointed to the innermost one in a row of warehouses. The door was closed, but light shone through the crack in the door. I walked around to the side of the warehouse. There was a small window, maybe 7 feet above the ground. I found a few abandoned pallets, stacked them, stepped on them, and peered through the windows. There are 3 people inside the warehouse. One I knew, Jack Davis. He is much thinner than he was 3 years ago. His cheeks are sunken and his cheekbones protrude, looking like a breathing skeleton. Wearing a dirty hoodie, he stood in the middle of the warehouse with his hands in his pockets, his body swaying slightly, a posture unique to someone who has been on drugs or alcohol for a long time. I don't know the other 2 people. One has a bald head, wears a leather jacket, and has tattoos on his neck. He looks like the kind of thug who specializes in collecting people's bills. The other man had his back to me, and I couldn't see his face clearly, but he was wearing a well-tailored dark coat that was incompatible with this shabby warehouse. The bald man was talking. "When the hell are you going to pay back the money? It's been 3 months. You know Marcus doesn't like waiting." "Marcus." The name shot through me like an electric current. The man in the coat spoke. His voice was low and steady, with a spine-chilling calmness. "Jack, I'm giving you one last chance. You lost all the money you got from Victor, and that's none of my business. But you owe Marcus a different debt." Jack's voice was shaking. I couldn't hear clearly what he was saying. I only heard a few words. "Give me more time. I'll pay it back, please." The man in the coat took an envelope out of his pocket and dropped it at Jack's feet. "Here is your new mission. When you're done, whatever you owe Marcus is wiped clean." Jack knelt down and picked up the envelope. His hands were shaking so much that he had to take it apart several times. He pulled out the contents, took a look, and then froze. "No," he said, "no. This won't work." "Why not?" She's been released from prison. She's at Victor's. I can't move her." My blood froze. "Who are they talking about?" "They're talking about me." The man in the coat took a step forward, and I finally saw his profile. Sharp jawline, dark hair, neatly trimmed. He has a similar temperament to Victor, but is colder, older, and more dangerous. Victor's sighed. "I'll handle it. You just have to do what you have to do. You did a great job in the car accident, even though Victor got the short end of the stick in the end. But this time, you have to do it yourself. Clean and crisp. Leave no trace." "But," Jack's voice was almost crying, "she doesn't know anything. She's been in jail for me for 3 years. You can't dash I can't?" The man in the coat turned around and looked at Jack head on. I finally saw his face clearly. He was about 50 years old, with deep features, highbrow bones, and thin lips. I had seen this face on the news. "Marcus Wayne. What can't I do?" Marcus's voice was very soft, as light as a sword that had just been unsheathed. "Jack, have you forgotten that the reason why you are still alive and standing here is not because you are smart, but because I allow you to live? What you owe me is not money, but your life. If I hadn't helped you suppress the car accident 3 years ago, do you think the surveillance records of your car repair shop would have disappeared on their own? Do you think the record of text messages you sent to Emily's phone can be cleared? Jack's face turned pale. That car accident, Marcus continued, was what I wanted. But you screwed up the process. You let your fiancé drive. You let an innocent man go to jail for you. I don't care. But you went too far in court. You cried too much. You brought this case to too many people's attention. So you know how much it cost me to wipe your ass? Jack's lip was trembling. Now, I just need you to do one very simple thing. Make Emily Carter disappear. Gone forever. In this way, there will no longer be any living witnesses to the car accident. Victor's bargaining chip to use her to blackmail me is gone. Marcus bent down and patted Jack's face. The gesture was as contemptuous as patting a dog. When it's done, your debt will be cleared. You can leave Los Angeles, go somewhere where no one knows you, and start over. Or, he straightened up and put his hands into his coat pockets. You can also refuse. Then I'll let Baldhead deal with you here. Anyway, several people are already buried in the foundation of this warehouse, including you. Jack knelt on the ground. His shoulders were shaking, and his whole body was curled up into a ball, like a trampled cardboard box. I stood outside the window, holding on to the edge of the windowsill, my nails embedded in the rusty iron frame. The cold wind dried my tears, or maybe I wasn't crying at all. I don't know. I only know one thing, 3 years. I spent 3 years in jail for this man. I watched his tears in court and believed his remorse. Every night I spent in prison, I survived by thinking, he's still waiting for me. And he had been planning to trade me for his freedom from the very beginning, and then, after everything was settled, he would personally end my life. I'm not the one taking the blame for him. I am his sacrifice. Marcus is gone. The bald man followed him. Jack was alone in the warehouse. He knelt on the ground, holding the envelope in his hand, shaking all over. I jumped off the pallet and walked around to the front door of the warehouse. The door was unlocked. Marcus' men didn't even bother locking it when they left because they didn't think Jack was going to get away. Where could a man like Jack go? I pushed open the door. The iron door made a harsh creaking sound. Jack's head jerked up, and when he saw me, there was an expression on his face that I had never seen before, not surprise, not fear, but something deeper. It's the look on someone's face when they see a ghost of their own making. Emily. His voice seemed to be squeezed out from the depths of his throat. Why are you here? I walked up to him, squatted down, and looked level with him. Jack, I said, my voice so calm that even I felt strange. I heard what you just said. His pupils shrank suddenly. The car accident 3 years ago, I said, was arranged by you. You let me drive that car, you sent that text message to distract me, and you let me hit and kill those 2 people. Then you cried in court, making me think you were the best fiancé in the world, and making me plead guilty for you willingly. My voice never rose. Not because I'm calm, but because anger has reached a critical point. Beyond that point, it turns to ice. Then you waited for me outside the prison? No. You took the money Victor gave you, went to Las Vegas, and lost it all. Then you came back, continued to gamble, continued to borrow, and continued to cheat. Now Marcus asked you to kill me to pay off the last debt you owed him. Jack burst into tears. He cried again. Just like in the court, snot and tears mixed together, and the whole face was twisted into a ball. Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I didn't know it would be like this. I watched him cry. His tears led me to sign a plea deal 3 years ago. Let me hand over 3 years of my life. I spent 1,095 nights behind bars. Now he's crying again. But this time, his tears had no effect on me. It's not because my heart has hardened, but because I finally saw clearly. Jack's tears were not shed for others. Every tear he sheds was for himself. He cried because he was discovered. He cried because he was cornered. He cried because he was afraid. He never cries for me. I stood up and looked down at him. Jack, you have 2 choices now. He raised his head and looked at me with tears in his eyes. First, you do what Marcus says. You kill me. Then what? Do you think he will really let you go? You know too many secrets about him. I am his last living witness, and you are the only one who knows all the transactions between him and Victor. After you kill me, you will be next. Jack's face turned even paler. Second, I said, you help me. Help you? What can I help you with? Help me send both Marcus and Victor to jail. Jack stood there stunned. He looked at me like I had just said something crazy. You're crazy, he said. You don't know who they are. You can't fight them. I don't have to fight them, I said, I just have to play them against each other. I knelt down and took the envelope from Jack's hand. Inside was a picture, my picture. It was taken on the day I was released from prison. I was standing at the prison door with my hair soaked by the rain. Written on the back of the photo, target confirmed. Deadline, November 15th, November 15th. 3 weeks to go. I put the photo back into the envelope and stuffed it into my pocket. Jack, listen to me. Victor wanted to use me to blackmail Marcus. Marcus wants to kill me to silence me. The balance between the two of them is me. As long as I am around, they will keep each other in check and be wary of each other. But if I died, Victor would lose his leverage and Marcus would have one less threat. At that point, they won't need each other, they'll work together. Do you know what the first thing they did together was? Jack shook his head. It's about cleaning up all traces. All. Including you. I stood up and looked down at Jack, who was kneeling on the ground. The man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. The man I would have given anything for. You didn't help me because you wanted to atone for your sins. I know you don't want to. You helped me because you want to live. This is your only chance. Jack was silent for a long time. The only sounds in the warehouse were the sound of wind pouring in through the crack in the door and his heavy breathing. Then he nodded. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I was Victor's asset, quiet, submissive, and obedient. I accompany him to parties, smile when he needs me, and disappear when he doesn't. I even learned to show a hint of dependence in front of him, saying thank you when he helped me pull my chair, and bowing my head slightly when he handed me my coat, so that he felt that I was slowly accepting this new identity. At night, I sort through the photos on my phone that I took from Victor's briefcase and the messages Jack sent on a burner phone. Jack had so much more to offer than I could have ever imagined. He had had many contacts with Marcus people before the car accident 3 years ago. He kept the time and place of every meeting not because he had foresight, but because he had a sad habit. He wrote everything down in a small notebook because he was afraid he would forget. The amount of the gambling debt, the date the money was borrowed, and the names of each creditor. Including everything Marcus said when his people first found him. They said if I helped cause a car accident, all my gambling debts would be wiped off. They didn't say anyone would die. Really, Emily, they didn't say, Jack, shut up. Keep talking. They also gave me a phone number. They said to call this number if anything unexpected happened. I never called. But I kept the note. You still have it? I keep everything. I don't know why. Maybe because I know I'll need it one day. Yes. Jack is a coward, a gambler, and a liar. But he is a coward who will leave evidence. This is probably the only place where he is useful. I cross-referenced all the information Jack had given me with the photos I had taken from Victor, and began to piece together a complete picture of the incident. Marcus Wayne was targeted by the FBI 3.5 years ago. His financial director and lawyers had all the evidence of bribery, money laundering, and tax evasion. The two men agreed to cooperate with federal prosecutors in exchange for immunity. They agreed to meet at the federal prosecutor's office at 7 p.m. on October 17th with all the evidence and documents. Marcus must stop this before they arrive. He found Victor Reyes. Victor is the most efficient intermediary in the Los Angeles underworld. He doesn't show up and doesn't get involved, but he knows everyone who can get things done. Marcus gave him $500,000 to get rid of the two men. Victor found Jack. It's not because of how capable Jack is, but because Jack is too incompetent. An incompetent person is the easiest to become a scapegoat when things are revealed. Jack put me in the driver's seat. After the car accident, the two men died and the evidence documents were burned. Federal prosecutors had to drop their investigation into Marcus after a key witness died. But Victor kept a secret. He didn't destroy all the evidence. He kept records of Jack's dealings with him, and preserved certain key details of the car accident. He may even have kept records of communications between Marcus and him. These things are the chips Victor uses to blackmail Marcus. And I am the last seal on this chip. A living, criminal ex-con with a criminal record. If this matter is revealed, all fingers will be pointed at Jack because he is the direct planner. And who will Jack point to? Victor? Marcus? They would bite and tear each other apart until all were exposed to the sun. That's why Victor wanted to get me out of prison. That's why he wanted me to live in his house, wear his clothes, and show up at his parties. He is showing Marcus, your biggest threat is in my hands. And she's still alive. As long as she lives, you will never sleep well. And Marcus responded, let Jack kill her. A game between two men. And I was the only chess piece on the chessboard that didn't step up voluntarily. But I am no longer a pawn. After I saw that scene in the warehouse, after I heard Marcus say, make Emily Carter disappear, in that understatement, after I saw Jack shaking on his knees, I decided one thing. I want them to kill each other. I need a plan. A plan that would expose both Victor and Marcus to the public at the same time. Not by calling the police. There are Marcus people in the police system, and there are Victor people in the police system. In this city, the law does not serve people who have no money, no power, and no criminal records. I need another way. I needed to make their crime an event that could not be covered up, bought off, or ignored. I need a stage. A stage that is big enough, bright enough, and attracts enough attention. I found the answer in Victor's study. That afternoon, while I was bringing him coffee, yes, I was already doing that, bringing coffee, passing newspapers, doing anything to make Victor think I was increasingly submissive, he was on the phone. He didn't avoid me, that was a sign. He started to trust me. Yes, the charity dinner in November. Marcus will also come. I know. But this year is different. I will host it this year. On my territory, he dare not do anything. He hung up the phone and smiled slightly when he saw me standing at the door holding coffee. Put it on the table. I put the coffee down. He hesitated, then spoke. This was part of the plan. I needed to make him feel like I was starting to take an interest in his world. Charity dinner? I asked, my voice cautious, like a child testing the boundaries. Victor glanced at me. His eyes lingered on my face a little longer than usual, then he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands behind his head. Interested? I lowered my head, pretending to be embarrassed. I have never participated in such an event. The previous gatherings were all small. A charity dinner sounds different. Victor smiled. Not the kind of sneer that sends chills down my spine, but a real smile with a hint of warmth. It's definitely different. There will be a lot of people. The media will also come. News camera crew, LA Times reporters, and some local TV stations. He paused. What are you worried about? I'm not worried, I said, looking up into his eyes. I just want to know what I should do. What to wear, what to say, where to stand. I don't want to embarrass you. I know this sentence was meant for him. What Victor Reyes cares about most is not money or power, but image. He spent more than 10 years in public, building himself from an underground casino owner into a successful philanthropist and community leader. Every public appearance he makes is carefully planned, and every detail is impeccable. He looked at me, his eyes softening a little. No, not soft. It's a sense of satisfaction that I tamed her. You don't have to worry about anything, he said. I'll take care of everything. You just need stand next to you and smile. I finished for him. He laughed out loud. You've learned. Yes, Victor. I learned. But what I learned is not how to stand next to you and smile. What I learned is how to insert the knife into your softest place when you are most proud. November 15th, charity dinner. The venue is the Millennium Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. The red carpet stretched from the entrance to the street, and both sides were crowded with media and onlookers. The flashes were like a never-ending thunderstorm. Victor wore a black custom-made suit, and I wore a burgundy long skirt. He asked the stylist to choose it. It was off the shoulder, with a high slit, and it was so gorgeous that it was almost flamboyant. I want everyone to see you tonight, he said. Yes, Victor. Everyone will see me tonight. There were 50 tables in the hall for the dinner, with 10 people at each table. Crystal lamps, flowers, silverware, every detail exudes the smell of money. Victor's desk was at the front, facing the stage. Marcus Wayne's desk was on the right, 2 rows away. I saw Marcus. He was sitting at the table, talking to a gray-haired man with a calm expression and a decent smile. He wore a dark blue suit, with a pocket square on his chest folded into a perfect triangle. If I hadn't seen him in that warehouse, I might have thought he was just a successful, respected elder. His eyes scanned the crowd and landed on me. It stayed for about 2 seconds. Then he looked away and continued talking to the person next to him. But those 2 seconds were enough. In those 2 seconds, I saw something in his eyes, coldness, calculation, and a subtle hint of vigilance. He knows who I am. He knew what it meant for me to be by Victor's side. The dinner began. The host comes on stage, delivers a speech, and introduces the guests. Then came the auction, then the performance, then the speech. Everything was a standard charity dinner routine. Everyone was smiling, applauding, and raising glasses. I'm waiting. Halfway through the dinner, Victor was called to the stage. He is going to give a speech about the community redevelopment plan. This is his most important part every year, because he can stand in the spotlight and show his good deeds to the entire Los Angeles. He walked up to the stage and stood behind the podium, with the lights shining on him. He began to speak, his voice steady, confident, and infectious. He's a natural performer, I have to admit. During his speech, I quietly stood up from my seat. I walked through the crowd to the control room at the back of the hall. There is a technician in the control room operating the sound and projection equipment. When he saw me coming in, he was stunned for a moment. "Ma'am, we're not allowed here." "I know," I said, taking out a USB flash drive from my bag. "Mr. Victor asked me to give this to you. He said he wanted to replace the original demonstration file." The technician hesitated. "But the original document has been," Mr. Victor said. It was a last-minute decision. He wanted to add a new link to the speech. "You could just call Mr. Victor's assistant to confirm," but he said. I smiled. "He is on stage now and doesn't want to be interrupted." The technician looked at me and then at the USB drive. He probably felt that it was unlikely that a beautiful woman in a burgundy evening dress standing next to Victor Reyes was here to cause havoc. He inserted the USB drive. On the screen, Victor's speech continued. He was talking about how he grew from an ordinary businessman to a socially responsible citizen. There was a burst of polite applause in the hall. Then, the screen switched. Instead of switching to his PPT, he switched to a video. A video that I spent 2 weeks editing. The video begins with a surveillance video. In the picture, Jack is sitting at the gambling table, and the chips in front of him pile up and disappear like a mountain. Then the screen fast-forwarded to another scene in a dark conference room. Victor and Marcus were sitting together. This video was provided by Jack. He somehow obtained it from a former employee of Marcus. The picture quality is poor, but the sound is clear. Victor's voice came from the speaker. "Those two people must disappear before tonight. If they hand over the documents, Marcus will be finished." Marcus' voice. "How sure are you?" Victor. "I've found someone. A gambler. Got a lot of debt. He'll take care of it." Marcus. "Is it reliable?" Victor. "Unreliable. But he has a fiancé." Marcus. "Fiancé?" Victor. "A very obedient girl. If something goes wrong, she will take the blame for everyone." The hall fell silent. 500 people sat there, glasses in hand, smiles on their faces from just a few seconds ago. Those smiles were slowly solidifying, disintegrating, into an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, not fear, something deeper than either. It's disgusting. It's that instinctive feeling in your stomach when you suddenly see something rotten beneath a shiny surface. Victor stood on the stage with his back to the screen. He couldn't see the video, but he could hear the sound. He could see the changes in expressions on the 500 faces in the audience. He turned around and saw the picture on the screen. His expression changed. At that moment, the face of Victor Reyes, always calm, always in control, took on an expression I had never seen before. Not anger. Anger was hot, and his face was cold. It's something that's frozen from the inside. His lips parted slightly, his jaw muscles tensed, and the veins on his temples twitched. Then he looked across the crowd and found me. I stood at the back of the hall, leaning against the wall, with the burgundy skirt falling at my feet. Our eyes met amid the lights and music in the hall. He looked at me and I looked into his eyes. What did he see in my eyes? Did he see Emily breaking down and crying in the study? Did he see Emily in the rain at the prison door, waiting for someone who would never come? Did he see the woman he defined by the word asset? Maybe he saw it. But of all the things he saw, one thing stood out the most. I'm not afraid of him anymore. The video continues to play. The next image is of Jack. He was sitting in a room somewhere, with a white wall in the background and dim light. His face was swollen and his eyes were dark, looking like a man who had been completely crushed by life. But his voice was clear. Surprisingly clear. "My name is Jack Davis. I was the mastermind behind the fatal car accident that occurred on Sepulveda Boulevard in Los Angeles 3 years ago. I was hired by Victor Reyes, who gave me $500,000 to cause a car accident that targeted 2 individuals, Marcus Wayne's financial director and his attorney." Someone in the hall gasped. Marcus Wayne sat motionless at his desk. His expression didn't change, but his hand, the one on the table, slowly tightened. Jack's voice continued. "Those 2 men were on their way to the federal prosecutor's office, and they had evidence of Marcus Wayne's bribery, money laundering, and tax evasion. Marcus didn't want that evidence to be handed over. So he found Victor. Victor found me. I didn't do it myself. I asked my then fiancée Emily Carter to drive the car. I sent her a text message while she was driving to distract her. She hit the car. 2 people died. The evidence was burned. Emily got 3 years. I used the $500,000 that Victor gave me to pay off part of my gambling debts, and lost the rest in Las Vegas. Later, Victor came to me and said that if I agreed to transfer the control of Emily to him, he would cancel all my remaining debts. I agreed. I sold Emily. Jack's lip trembled, but he didn't stop. Then Marcus Wayne found me again. He said that Emily was out of jail and that she was a living threat. He asked me to kill her. He gave me 3 weeks. If I couldn't do it, he would kill me. The video ends here. The screen goes dark. There was dead silence in the hall. Then, as if someone flipped a switch, 500 people started talking at once. The sound surged up like a tide, drowning out the music and everything else. Someone is talking on the phone, someone is standing up, someone is looking in the direction of Victor, someone is looking in the direction of Marcus. The flashbulbs started going off again, not the red carpet kind this time, but the kind that happens when reporters smell blood. Victor walked off the stage. His pace was quick, but it didn't feel like he was running away, more like he was redeploying. His eyes passed through the crowd and landed on me. He came towards me. His expression changed with every step he took, from shock, to anger, to something I'd never seen on his face before, admiration. Yes, admire it. He stopped in front of me. The chaos around him seemed to have nothing to do with him. He just looked at me for about 5 seconds. When did you start planning? He asked. The voice was very calm as asking me what I would eat today. From the moment you told me, you are my asset. He nodded. The corners of his mouth even curled up slightly. I underestimated you. Yes, I said, you underestimated. He said no more. He turned around and walked through the crowd towards the side door of the hall. 2 bodyguards in suits followed him. His back disappeared behind the door. On the other side, Marcus Wayne was also surrounded by his bodyguards. But he's in a worse position than Victor because he's directly mentioned by name in the video, citing his attempts to cover up the federal investigation. This is not just a civil matter anymore. This is a federal felony. Someone was shouting the police are coming. Someone was yelling FBI. Someone was shouting stop them. The hall was in complete chaos. I stood by the wall, leaning against the cold wall, watching all this. I still clutched the empty clutch in my hand. My fingers were shaking, not from nerves, but from exhaustion after the adrenaline wears off. Then I saw Diana Cross. She stood on the other side of the hall, leaning against the bar with a glass of champagne in her hand. She looked at me, raised her glass slightly, and then took a sip. There was no surprise or admiration in her expression, only a faint, almost tired understanding. She already knew I would do this. Maybe she knew it from the beginning. When she gave me the note, she had already placed the piece on the chessboard. But she is not my ally. In this story, there are no allies. There are only people who have the same purpose temporarily. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Not just any patrol officer, someone from the FBI. They had apparently received an anonymous tip. I had sent it 3 days earlier via an encrypted email address. I packaged all the photos in Victor's briefcase, all the evidence provided by Jack, and the timeline and events I compiled myself and sent them to the public reporting mailbox of the FBI's Los Angeles branch. I didn't use my real name. I used a temporarily registered email address and deleted it after sending it. The federal agents split into 2 groups. One group went in the direction Victor left, and the other group headed toward Marcus' table. Marcus was still sitting there, he wasn't running. A smart person would not run away at a time like this. To run is to plead guilty. And he, as an old fox who has been wandering in the gray area of the law for decades, knows when to run and when to sit back and wait. He was taken away by 2 agents. As he passed me, he paused. He looked down at me, he was much taller than I was, still condescending in that posture, and he spoke. You know this isn't going to change anything, right? His voice was so soft that only I could hear it. You did ruin tonight. You did embarrass both Victor and me. But what about tomorrow? What about the day after tomorrow? You know I have the best lawyers. You know these things end up being classified as insufficient evidence. You know I know, I said, interrupting him, that you're going to get the best lawyer you can. You will use all your money and connections to make this thing go away. You will continue to live in your big house, attend your charity dinners, and pretend that you are a respected businessman. I raised my head and looked him directly in the eyes. But I also know one thing. What? From tonight on, your name will be associated with the words federal investigation, bribery, and paid murder. Every time someone searches your name on Google, the first result is tonight's news. Your partners will start to distance themselves from you, your investors will start pulling money, and your banks will start scrutinizing every loan you take out. You can win the lawsuit, but you can't beat Google. You can buy a judge, but you can't buy the internet. Marcus' lips formed a thin line. And, I said, you forgot one thing. Jack is still alive. He has more evidence. I have it in my hand too. Tonight's video is just the first episode. If you think I'm going to stop there, I smiled. Then you underestimate me. Marcus Wayne was taken away by agents. His back looked long in the hall light, but it no longer frightened me as it once did. It's just a back view. The back view of an ordinary person. I stood in the hall, surrounded by chaotic crowds, flashing police lights, and the shutters of reporters. Someone came up to me and asked me if I was Emily Carter and if I wanted to be interviewed. I didn't answer. I walked through the crowd and walked out of the hotel door. It's cold at night in Los Angeles. The November wind blows from the end of the street, carrying the salty smell of the Pacific Ocean and the smell of car exhaust. I stood at the door of the hotel and looked up at the sky. The clouds were so thick that no stars could be seen. But the city lights turned the sky into a strange orange color, almost falsely warm. I stood there, wearing that burgundy dress, with bare shoulders, and the cold wind gave me goosebumps. But I didn't tremble. I think of that night 3 years ago. It's also raining, also in Los Angeles. I was sitting in the driver's seat of a car, holding the steering wheel in my hands and thinking, don't forget to buy milk. Then there was a loud bang, then the sound of breaking glass, then screams, then red and blue police lights. I thought of Jack's tears in the courtroom. I thought of the dull thud of the judge's hammer coming down. I thought of the sound of the iron door closing behind me. I thought about the 1,095 nights in prison. Each night I thought about the same question, will he come to pick me up? I thought of the fireplace in Victor's study. Think of the flat tone in his voice when he said, you are my asset. Thinking of the clothes he prepared for me, those shoes, that burgundy skirt, yes, I'm wearing it now. He chose it with his own hands. I thought of Jack kneeling on the floor in the warehouse. Thinking of Marcus bending down and patting him in the face like a dog. Thinking of my picture in that envelope, with the words goal confirmed written on the back. I thought about the note Diana Cross handed me. Think of her saying that man doesn't want you to get out of jail alive. I think about tonight. Thinking of the look on Victor's face when he stood on stage, turned around, and saw the image on the screen. Thinking of Marcus' lips pursed into a thin line as he was taken away. Thinking of 500 people whose expressions went from smiling to disgusted. It's all over. No, it's not the end. It's begun. It really begins. But this part of tonight is over. I stood in front of the hotel for a long time. The doorman who had arrived at the hotel for a long time came over and asked me if I needed help calling a taxi. I said no. I started walking along the sidewalk. High heels made a crisp sound on the wet sidewalk. I don't know where I'm going. I had no home, no address, no emergency contacts saved on my phone. I only had the identity of an ex-con who had just been released from prison for 27 days, and a burgundy skirt that I bought from a second-hand store, was thrown away by Victor's stylist, and was picked up by me from the cloakroom. But I have one thing that I didn't have before I walked into prison. I have the truth. Not the gentle, comforting kind of truth. The kind of ugly, dirty truth that wakes you up in the middle of the night. But it is the truth. It was something I gained in exchange for 3 years of freedom. It was poured out of me through 1,095 nights of pain and tears. It's mine. No one can take it away from me. I walked for about 20 minutes and reached an overpass. Below the overpass is Highway 405, with traffic flowing like luminous rivers in the night. I stood on the overpass, holding the railing with both hands, looking at the traffic below. The wind blew over and blew my hair into my face. I tucked my hair behind my ears and took a deep breath. The air was cold and clean, smelling of rain and asphalt. This is the taste of freedom. Not the kind of freedom you see in movies, no one waiting for me at the finish line, no one clapping on the side of the road, no one putting a bouquet of flowers on the flyover. This is what freedom tastes like. Cold, clean, and a little pungent. But enough is enough. It's enough for me to survive. The next morning, I sat in a fast food restaurant and spent my last $20 on a cup of coffee and a sandwich. The news is playing on the TV in the store. At a charity dinner held at the Millennium Hotel last night, a video was played that caused chaos. In the video, a man claimed that he was hired by well-known businessman Victor Reyes to plan a car accident that killed 2 people 3 years ago. The video also mentioned that real estate developer Marcus Wayne was suspected of bribery and attempts to cover up evidence. The FBI has intervened in the investigation. Victor Reyes' lawyer issued a statement saying that the content of the video is purely fabricated and that his client is completely innocent. Marcus Wayne's representative declined to comment. I took a bite of the sandwich. Not very tasty. The bread was too dry and the eggs were too salty. But I finished it anyway. The first thing you learn in prison is, eat the food, whether it tastes good or not. I finished my coffee, stood up, and took the tray to the recycling station. Then I walked out of the fast food restaurant. The sun is dazzling. I squinted my eyes and stood on the street, watching the people coming and going. Everyone is on their way and everyone has somewhere to go. I'm the only one standing here, not knowing where the next stop is. But I didn't panic. Because the second thing you learn in prison is, When you don't know where to go, stay where you are. Don't run around. Running around will get you stabbed. I stood there and thought for about 5 minutes. Then I made a decision. I'm going to find Jack. Not because I want to forgive him. I will never forgive him. But he was the last card in my hand. Both Marcus and Victor have the best lawyers and countless resources to fight the federal investigation. But Jack is different. Jack is a broken man. A broken person either says nothing or says everything. And I needed to make sure he was the latter. I found Jack in a cheap motel downtown. The door is unlocked. When I pushed the door open and walked in, he was sitting by the bed, holding an empty wine bottle in his hand. His eyes were red and swollen, and he was huddled up. The room was small and the air smelled of musty smoke and sweat. The curtains were tightly drawn, and only the bedside lamp gave off a dim light. When he looked up and saw me, I thought he was going to cry. But he didn't. He just looked at me, his eyes as empty as 2 hollowed-out holes. "There you are," he said. The voice was hoarse, like sandpaper being rubbed. "Have you seen the news?" I asked. He nodded. "Did they come to find you?" "Not yet. But they will come." He put the bottle on the ground, put his hands on his knees, and lowered his head. "Victor's people, Marcus' people, the police, the FBI. Everybody's going to come to me. I'm the one talking in the video. I'm the one admitting everything." He raised his head and looked at me. "You know, Emily, I've never told the truth in my life. Never. I lied to you, to the judge, to Victor, to Marcus, to myself. I don't even know what it feels like to tell the truth anymore." He lowered his head and covered his face with his hands. "The words you said last night, the words in the video, were the first time in my life that I told the truth. Do you know what that feels like?" I didn't answer. "It's like vomiting," he said. "It's like vomiting out all the rotten things in the stomach. It's disgusting, but after vomiting, the stomach is empty." He was silent for a long time. Then he lowered his hands and looked at me. His eyes were still red, but something inside them had changed. Not regret. Regret is selfish. Something cleaner. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe acceptance. "They're going to get me in," he said, "right?" "Yes." "How long?" "I don't know." "But you did those things, Jack. You planned that car accident. 2 people died. You will go to jail." He nodded. The movement was very light and slow, like a person who already knew the answer was confirming a fact that was no longer important. "It's worth it," he said. I looked at him. Not sure what I heard. I said, "It's worth it." He raised his head and looked at me, and the corners of his mouth even curled up slightly, not a smile, but a kind of relaxation that finally stopped struggling. "If I go to jail because I told the truth, it's worth it. Worth more than anything I have ever done in my life." I stood there, looking at the man I once loved. There were wrinkles on his face, dark circles under his eyes, and traces of alcohol and drugs. He looks 10 years older than he did 3 years ago. But his eyes, the eyes that had once been full of lies, were clean now. Clean, but empty. Like a room that has had all its furniture removed. "Jack," I said, "they're going to ask you a lot of questions. Victor's deal with Marcus, all the details of the car accident, and I know," he said, "I'll tell you. All. Not a word is missing." He stood up and walked over to me. He was half a head taller than me, but he was bent over as if he was being pressed down by something. He looked at me with something in his eyes that I had never seen before. "Emily," he said, "I'm sorry." This is the first time he has said this. Not the kind of cry used to gain sympathy in a courtroom. Not the fear of being cornered in Victor's study. A real, clean "I'm sorry" with no strings attached. I looked at him. I watched it for a long time. "I know," I said. "I didn't say I forgive you. Because I can't. Maybe one day I can, but not today. Maybe never. But at least, I can say I know. I know you're apologizing. I know you mean it." That's enough. Jack was taken away by the FBI. Just that afternoon. They knocked on the motel door, handcuffed him and took him to the car. Before he got in the car, he looked back at me. He didn't say anything, just looked at me. Then he got into the car and the door closed. I stood on the other side of the parking lot and watched the car pull out and disappear at the end of the street. 3 weeks later. Outside the court. The sunshine in winter is very weak, and it doesn't have much warmth on the body. I stood on the steps of the courthouse, wearing a black wool coat that I had altered myself from an old coat I bought at a thrift store. I didn't take away any of the clothes in the cloakroom. The court door opened. Victor Reyes and Marcus Wayne were taken out by federal marshals. Victor wore a dark gray suit. Like his other suits, perfectly cut and made of expensive fabric. But his hair is not as neat as before, with a few strands hanging on his forehead. There was a light stubble on his chin. His walking posture was still the same, unhurried, but he lacked the calmness of controlling everything before. Marcus walked behind him. He wore a dark blue coat with the collar turned up. His face was very pale, as gray as a piece of crumpled paper. He was not looking at anyone. His eyes were staring straight ahead and his lips were pursed tightly. They were taken to the bottom of the steps. The police car was waiting there. The bailiff opened the car door and Victor stopped before getting in the car. He turned his head and found me in the crowd. I stood on the steps, towering over everyone else. The sun hits my face, and I don't need to squint. The sun in winter isn't that dazzling. Victor looked at me. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. But he didn't say it. He just looked at me for about 3 seconds. Then he turned around, bent down, and got into the police car. Marcus didn't look at me. He didn't even look at me from beginning to end. But when he got in the car, I saw his hands were shaking. The hands of the man who had made the difference between my life and death with such an understatement as make Emily Carter disappear were shaking. The car door is closed. The police car pulled out of the courthouse parking lot and merged with traffic on the street. The red and blue police lights looked a little dazzling in the winter sun, like a carnival that didn't belong during the day. The crowd began to disperse. Reporters packed up their equipment, lawyers flipped through documents, and onlookers left in whispers. The steps gradually became empty, and I was the only one left. I stood on the steps and looked in the direction where the police car disappeared. The wind blew over and blew my hair into my face. I tucked my hair behind my ears and took a deep breath. The air in winter is cold and clean, with the aroma of coffee coming from afar. I remembered 3 years ago, when I pleaded guilty in court, the judge asked me, "Miss Carter, do you have anything else to say?" I said, "No. I have a lot to say." But I didn't say it. Because at that time, I thought silence was a kind of protection. Protect Jack, protect our future, protect the love that I thought was real but never really existed. Now I know. Silence is not protection. Silence is a shackles. It is something you put on yourself that is heavier than any iron chain. It took me 3 years to learn to speak. It's not the kind of speech that says I plead guilty in court, but the kind of speech that stands in front of everyone and tells the truth word for word. And today, I don't need to say anything more. The truth is already there. It doesn't need me to defend it, it doesn't need me to explain it, it doesn't need me to bear anything for it. It was there, as hard, as cold, as real as the stone on this step. I turned around and walked down the steps. My car, no, not my car. I rented an old Honda and parked it across the street. I crossed the street, opened the door, and got into the driver's seat. I held the steering wheel. Fingers tightened and then unclenched on the steering wheel. 3 years ago, when I held the steering wheel for the last time, I shattered the lives of 2 people and my own life. From then on, every time I got into the driver's seat, my hands shook. But today, my hands didn't shake. I started the car. The engine vibrated slightly. I put the car in gear, hit the accelerator, and headed out into the street. In the rearview mirror, the courthouse steps grew farther and farther away, smaller and smaller, until they became and disappeared into the gray Los Angeles skyline. I didn't look at it again. I drove my car and walked north along Highway 405. I don't know where I'm going. Maybe to San Francisco, maybe further afield. I have no idea. But I knew one thing, I was driving. I'm driving myself. The steering wheel is in my hand, the accelerator is under my feet, and the road is ahead. That's enough. There was a song playing on the radio that I didn't know the name of. The female voice is deep and the guitar is slow, like a person talking to himself in a bar late at night. I turned up the volume a bit. Los Angeles flows past me outside the car window. Palm trees, billboards, gas stations, fast food restaurants, traffic on the highway. The city is the same as when I left 3 years ago, and the same as when I returned 27 days ago. It doesn't stop for anyone's tragedy, nor does it applaud anyone's victory. It's just there, between the Pacific and the desert, on a land bleached by the sun, continuing its never-ending breath. And I, in a certain corner of this city, finally learned the same thing. Breathe. Not to be patient, not to wait, not to live for someone, something, or a false promise. Just breathe. Just occupy a small space in this world for yourself. I turned off the radio. The car was quiet except for the hum of the engine and the sound of tires grinding against the road. I looked at the road ahead. The gray highway leads to a place whose name I don't know yet. But I'm not afraid anymore. Because I know one thing, after you have been in the darkest place for 3 years, you are no longer afraid of the dark. What you are afraid of is not the darkness, what you are afraid of is that you are alone in the darkness. And when you know this, you are no longer the one who needs others to illuminate you. You yourself are the light. Although very weak. Although it can only light up a little bit of the road in front of you. But enough is enough. Enough. I rolled down the window a crack. The cold wind blew in and blew on my face, carrying the salty smell of the Pacific Ocean and a distant smell that I didn't recognize yet. That's the smell of the future. I stepped on the accelerator and drove into the gray, straight road leading into the distance.